Hello everyone, this is Stephen Hankins, and I came home from the day job to let my puppy in from the heat and check on him and have some lunch, and I figured I'm going to tie a fly while I'm at it. So I'm going to make a video for you showing how to tie a classic Art Flicks Red Quill. This utilizes a stripped Rhode Island red quill. You've been seeing a lot of that from me lately because Magpie Materials is soon to have genuine, awesome Rhode Island red quill capes for sale. And so here's what it looks like. As you can see, we have nice long feathers up towards the back, and they get smaller down by the neck as usual. And these smaller neck feathers are just fine for hackling. They're a sparser hackle, so for the Catskill guys, they'd be great for that. As you can see here too, the shoulders have good soft hackle. I've not tied with one yet, but I can just look at them and tell that they're going to be super duper. So anyways, we'll get on with it. So material prep for these. I also want to demonstrate how traditionally you'd want to soak your quills prior to wrapping because they can crack and split when wrapped around a thin hook. I found that these, you don't need to. If you're going to tie a lot of these, it's probably a good idea to still go ahead and soak prior to wrapping just for a little assurance. But, you know, I think it's really cool that so far it seems like they don't need to be soaked. So they go right along with the Magpie Materials wild turkey buyouts in that regard, that they're not brittle. So as you can see, I'm simply stripping off the barbs. Paul Slaney would have his thoughts and feelings on that. You know, these barbs, they do make good tailing. They're just fine for that, but you know, the classic patterns, Art Flicks Red Quill, AK's Red Quill Parachute, they call for a stripped rachis. So I want to be able to provide these for the classically minded fly tires, and they're just a good material. So as you can see, that is stripped clean. So I'll set that to the side. Next thing we'll prep is a lemon wood duck feather. You can see how beautiful that is. So what we want to do first is determine how much we want to use for the wings. Again, this is going to be a classic wood duck flank red quill a la Art Flick. So you can see I've pulled those barbs down there. I'm going to make it just a little bit sparser than that. So that's about all we'll need. So I'm going to trim that off. And now what I'm going to do is snip out the very center of that feather, and you'll see why shortly. So also the piece that I just snipped out, I save those for tails on Last Chance Cripples. All right, so we have materials prepped. What I'm going to do is start my thread, and this is Magpie Materials thread that I'm developing, working with. I don't have any materials that I haven't tied a lot with myself, so before it becomes official, I just want to make sure I know my product. So I don't want to sell any junk to you. So we'll start our thread in the usual fashion. We want to lay our thread base down. You don't want to tie any material to bare steel. This thread, so far, I'm really pleased with. I am flattening it out right now, and just so you can see how flat that lays out. It's nice, thin, good, strong thread. So now I'll advance my thread back towards the front. The first thing we'll do is tie in the flank wing. So we have our prepared lemon wood duck flank. So this took me a little bit of practice. This is a technique that I learned from Michael Gula. So we're basically just going to fold both sides over along the quill. And that's our wing. That's how we want to tie it in. Now we want to measure the length. You know, the classic flies, they often have quite a bit of a longer wing. It goes past the length of the hackle, which is also pretty long. 1.5 times or so the hook gap. So we'll do a pinch wrap, snug that down. I'm going to adjust the length just a little bit. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps back. Now, the cool part about this is that we can use the butt ends of the wood duck to build a taper. You can see here I have a curved scissor, Anadromous Fly Company here. Snipping it just like that will build in a great little taper. Anytime that you can add efficiency to your tie and not have to rely on thread work, but utilize the waist, the butt ends of that feather is a good thing. So now we'll tie in our tail, and for the tail I am using some CDL dyed dun. I'm going to take maybe, for a size 16, maybe, I don't know, half a dozen or so barbs, maybe a few more. These have a curve, so try to make the curve going upward. When you tie in, measure along the length of the hook shank. And here's another little trick that helps your tie in, is to clean up the butt ends prior to tying in. Okay. We have our tail. We're going to wrap back forward to the wing, and next we'll stand up the wing. Okay. Now we'll take the wing and sweep it backward. And as you can see, I'm going to stand up the wood duck by putting barbs or thread wraps right against the wing material, just like that. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we'll split the wing in two, and this is why we cut out the center notch of that flank feather. That assists in making this easy and more proportionate. 3 wraps. We're going to figure 8 wraps between, so 3 one direction, 3 the other. And there we go. I'm going to clean up a little bit. Okay, so also what we can do is, if we want to have a really kind of a clean wing, is we can put a couple of whips around each wing at the base, and that brings all those barbs together in a more neat condensed wing profile. Okay, so there we have that. Now we're going to bring our thread back down towards the base of the tail. I didn't do the best job of getting that curve in, but it'll work. Okay, so now for the stripped quill. I'm going to snip the top off so we have nothing but quill to work with. Okay, and always being mindful of thread control, I'm going to spin my bobbin counterclockwise. What that does is, as you can see, the thread wants to jump to the rear. And when tying in materials, that's typically the way that you want it to behave. It makes it easier on you. Okay. Now I'm going to tie in the tip of the stripped quill. And then the other good thing about flattening your thread prior to coming back forward is it makes a nice smooth base on which to wrap that quill. Okay. Also, you need to keep in mind how much hackle you want. And for these Catskill flies, you know, they're best tied nice and sparse. One thing I did do is I tied a little bit too far forward, but that's okay. I don't utilize a turtle knot, or I don't really make much of a nod to that tradition, but I'll have enough room for the hackle and a whip finish there. So with these Rhode Island Red Quills, or any kind of quill, you just need to take it slowly. Good quill work is indicated by touching turns, no gaps between the turns. So you can see I'm wrapping this dry. It wasn't soaked. It's not splitting, which is, to me, is really cool, because every Rhode Island Red Quill that I've used prior to this has the tendency to crack and split, hence the soaking. So just take it slow, touching turns, moving forward. Also, more for the taper, that's why the stripped quill is perfect for a mayfly body, is because it gets thicker towards the base, and that also makes a taper. Okay, so that's about as far as I want to come forward. Now I'm going to 4 turns. You want to use a few more turns than normal in tying this off, because it's a really thick, stiff material, so more than the normal amount of turns is a little bit better. What I mean is securing it to the hook. Okay, so the next step is to prepare our hackle. Here I'm using a Bill Skilton beautiful natural sandy tan dun saddle. Okay, so I've stripped barbs from the base of it. Now I'm going to tie in with the color going forward, and so the leading edge of the wraps, I'm going to strip a few more barbs off. That'll just assist in making a clean first few wraps. Okay, so you can see how I've cleaned that up, and now I'm going to tie this in right where we ended our body. Okay, what I did there was I smoothed all that off. Now I'm going to massage those wings back and finish tying off that quill. Okay, that's tied off. We have a smooth transition forward of the wing. Now, the best part of tying a dry fly is wrapping that beautiful hackle. 1, 2, 3, about 4 behind. Pull the wings back, make that first wrap right up against the wings. 1, 2, 3. Three wraps ties off the hackle. Now I've kind of gotten the hackle, the barbs a little bit out of place in the wrapping process, so you can just kind of smooth them back into their position. So there we have that. Now we'll whip finish. Here I use the hand whip finish like usual. 1, 2, 3, 4. Seat the knot with the bodkin. Make sure that's good and tight. Snip off the thread, and there we have it. Classic red quill. Okay, so the next step would be to coat the quill with a protectant. Here I'm using that stuff, hard as nails. Sally Hansen. You can do this step in stages too. You can, ooh, I got a little too much on there. You can tie a few, coat the bodies prior to putting in the hackle. But I tend to just wrap the whole fly and then go back and do this part. But you want to put a little protectant over the quill, just, you know, because we want our flies to last longer. Also, by doing that, it adds a little definition to the segmentation effect. So there you can see it. It's nice and shiny now, but that's going to soak in. It's not going to be as shiny after it's dried. So anyways, there's a classic red quill. Not the cleanest hackle job, but you know what? It'll fish just fine. Anyways, I hope you found some use from this video. Just the wood duck wings take some practice. Go slow and steady on wrapping that quill forward. And put one on some water. Thanks for watching.